There is a kitchen drawer in almost every American home built before 1970 that nobody today knows how to open properly. It has a small metal flap on the outside wall right next to it. If you have ever lived in an old house and wondered why, there's a strange little door built into the exterior brick right beside the kitchen. You have been looking at a piece of forgotten American engineering, and you had no idea what it actually did. That flap connected to a drawer inside your kitchen, and the milkman used it every single morning without ever knocking on your door, without ever waking anyone up, without you ever having to leave your bed. He opened the flap from outside, placed fresh glass bottles of milk directly into your kitchen, closed it, and moved on to the next house. That is one item on a list of 14 things that existed in ordinary American homes 50 and 60 years ago that we systematically ripped out, threw away, and forgot ever existed. Not because they stopped working, not because they were inferior to what replaced them. In most cases, they worked better than what we use today. We got rid of them because someone convinced an entire generation that newer automatically meant better. And by the time that generation figured out they had been sold a lie, the objects were already in landfills, and nobody made them anymore. Tonight, we are going through all 14, and by the time we get to the last one, the one nobody expects, you are going to understand why your grandparents' generation solved problems that we still have not figured out how to solve with all our modern technology. Number 1 is the milk chute. I already told you what it does, but I did not tell you what it meant. That small insulated box built into the exterior wall of a house was not just a delivery point. It was a temperature-controlled storage unit that required zero electricity. The insulation kept milk cold in summer and kept it from freezing in winter. It had a lock on the inside, so nobody outside could reach into your kitchen. It had a lock on the outside, so nobody inside could steal from the milkman's stock before he logged the delivery. It was a completely self-contained daily grocery delivery system that operated without a single app, without a single notification, without a single dollar spent on a subscription service, and it had been running in millions of American homes since the 1920s. It disappeared in the 1960s and 70s, not because it stopped working, but because supermarket chains realized they could make more money if people drove to a store instead of having food delivered directly to their kitchen. We spent the next 50 years slowly reinventing the milk chute and calling it grocery delivery apps. Number 2 is the whole house attic fan. Before central air conditioning became standard in American homes, nearly every house built between the 1930s and the 1960s had a massive fan installed in the ceiling of the upstairs hallway, connected directly to the attic. At night, homeowners would open a few windows on the lower floor, turn on the attic fan, and within about 15 minutes, the entire house would be completely evacuated of hot air and replaced with cool night air pulled through every room. It worked through simple physics. Hot air rises. The fan pulled that rising hot air straight up through the attic and pushed it outside through attic vents, creating a vacuum that dragged cool outdoor air through every open window in the house. No refrigerant, no compressor, no electric bill anywhere close to what air conditioning costs. Homes with whole house fans stayed comfortable through most of the summer, with electric bills a fraction of what modern air-conditioned homes pay. The technology still exists. You can still buy whole house fans today. Almost nobody does because central air conditioning companies spent decades marketing air conditioning as the only serious cooling solution, and an entire generation of contractors stopped installing something that actually worked better in dry climates and moderate summer nights because there was more profit margin in selling compressor-based systems that need servicing every few years. Number 3 is the laundry chute. If your house was built before 1970 and has more than one floor, there's a real chance there used to be a small door in an upstairs closet or hallway that opened onto a vertical shaft leading straight down to the basement or laundry room. You dropped your dirty clothes in, They fell straight down. No carrying laundry baskets up and down stairs. No separate hampers in every bedroom. Just a hole in the wall that solved a physical labor problem using nothing but gravity. Home builders stopped including laundry chutes starting in the 1970s, primarily because of fire code concerns, since an open vertical shaft can spread smoke and flame quickly between floors if not properly sealed. That is a legitimate safety concern. But instead of engineering a safer version of the laundry chute, which absolutely could have been done with fire-rated doors and smoke dampers, the entire concept was abandoned. Millions of Americans now carry laundry baskets up and down stairs multiple times a week for a problem that a hole in a closet floor solved perfectly for 50 years. Number 4 is the built-in ironing board. Almost every kitchen or hallway closet in a mid-century American home had a narrow cabinet door, often disguised to look like part of the wall, that folded open to reveal a full-length ironing board built directly into the wall cavity. It folded flat when not in use, taking up zero floor space, and it pulled down into position, ready to use in about 3 seconds. No dragging a heavy folding ironing board out of a closet. No finding a spot to set it up. No tripping over it while it leaned against a wall waiting to be put away. It was there, built into the architecture of the house, exactly where you needed it, exactly when you needed it. This disappeared for the dumbest possible reason. Home builders in the 1970s and 80s started prioritizing square footage numbers on real estate listings over built-in functionality, and a wall cavity with an ironing board inside it counted as wasted space on paper, even though it eliminated the need for a freestanding board that took up actual floor space when in use. Number 5 is the transom window. Look at old photographs of homes built before 1950, and you will notice small windows positioned directly above interior doors, between the top of the door frame and the ceiling. These were not decorative. Before central air conditioning and forced air heating systems became standard, transom windows allowed air to circulate between rooms even when doors were closed for privacy. You could keep a bedroom door shut at night for quiet and darkness while still allowing airflow from the hallway to prevent the room from becoming stuffy. In summer, they let hot air escape upward and out of rooms. In winter, opened slightly, they allowed heat from a fireplace or radiator in one room to gently warm an adjacent room without opening the main door. They were a passive climate control system built directly into residential architecture, and they vanished almost entirely once forced air HVAC systems made builders assume mechanical systems would handle all air circulation, ignoring the fact that mechanical systems fail, get turned off to save money, and cannot replicate the specific room-to-room airflow control that a transom window provided for free, forever, with no moving parts. Number 6 is the party line telephone, and I am including this one because the story behind why it disappeared explains something important about how American infrastructure actually gets built. A party line meant multiple households shared a single telephone line, each with a distinctive ring pattern, so you knew which calls were meant for your house. It sounds primitive until you understand what it actually enabled. In small towns and rural areas, if someone in your neighborhood was having a medical emergency, everyone on the party line could hear the call for help simultaneously and respond immediately. It created an informal, instant, community-wide emergency broadcast system decades before anyone had invented anything resembling it on purpose. Telephone companies phased out party lines through the 1960s and 70s in favor of private lines, which they charged significantly more money for, and which they marketed aggressively as an upgrade in privacy and status. What got lost in that transition was a genuine social safety net that had been operating quietly in American communities for decades, built entirely as a side effect of shared telephone infrastructure that nobody designed on purpose, but that saved lives regardless. Number 7 is the root cellar, and this one connects directly to a problem that modern Americans spend enormous amounts of money trying to solve without realizing their grandparents solved it for free. A root cellar is a small underground or partially underground room, usually accessed through the basement or a separate exterior door, maintained at a stable, cool temperature and high humidity year-round due to being surrounded by earth. Root vegetables, canned goods, and produce stored in a root cellar would stay fresh for months without any electricity, without any refrigeration cost, using nothing but the natural insulating properties of soil. American families used root cellars extensively through the first half of the 20th century to store an entire winter's worth of food harvested in the fall. As electric refrigeration became affordable and reliable in the 1950s and 60s, root cellars were seen as obsolete, and most new homes stopped including them. What actually happened is that we traded a zero-cost, zero-maintenance, zero-electricity food storage system for a system that requires continuous electrical power, generates a monthly utility bill for the rest of your life, and fails completely during any extended power outage. Number 8 is the coal chute, which by the time you finish hearing about it, you will realize is one of the most elegantly engineered pieces of home infrastructure that has ever existed and disappeared. Before natural gas and oil heating became standard, most American homes were heated with coal furnaces in the basement. A coal chute was a metal-lined opening in the foundation wall, usually near the driveway or street, that allowed a coal delivery truck to pour coal directly into a storage bin in the basement without a single person carrying a single shovel full through the house. The coal truck arrived, positioned a chute against the opening, and gravity did the rest. This system moved literal tons of heating fuel into American homes for decades, with essentially zero manual labor and zero mess tracked through living spaces. It disappeared entirely once natural gas heating became standard, because gas arrives through a pipe and requires no physical delivery at all. In a strange way, the coal chute was rendered obsolete by something genuinely better, which makes it different from most items on this list. But the engineering elegance of a gravity-fed delivery system built directly into a home's foundation is still worth appreciating, because it solved a physical labor problem in a way that modern deliveries of anything, from groceries to furniture, still have not fully replicated. Number 9 is the sleeping porch, and this is the item on this list that I think Americans lost the most without realizing what they were losing. Homes built in warmer regions of the United States, particularly in the South and parts of the Midwest, commonly included a screened porch attached to an upstairs bedroom or accessible from a hallway, specifically designed for sleeping outdoors during hot summer nights before air conditioning existed. Screened to keep insects out, positioned to catch prevailing breezes, these porches allowed families to sleep in outdoor air on nights when indoor bedrooms became unbearably hot. Beyond the practical cooling function, sleeping porches created a completely different relationship between American families and the natural world around their homes. Children grew up falling asleep to the sound of crickets and rain on a screen roof instead of the hum of an air conditioning unit. That entire category of childhood experience, connected to weather, to seasons, to the actual outdoor environment surrounding a house, essentially vanished from American domestic life. Once central air conditioning made it possible to seal a house completely and control the internal climate artificially year-round. Number 10 is the built-in radio nook, a small alcove or cabinet space built directly into living room walls in homes from the 1930s through the 1950s, sized specifically to hold the family's radio console as a permanent architectural feature rather than a piece of furniture that had to be positioned and repositioned. This tells you something important about how earlier generations of home builders thought about technology. The radio was not treated as a temporary gadget that would be replaced in a few years. It was treated as a permanent fixture worth designing the house around, the same way a fireplace or a staircase was permanent. Once televisions and later other electronics began changing rapidly every few years, builders stopped designing permanent architectural spaces for specific technology, which is reasonable given how fast consumer electronics change today. But it also represents a shift away from homes being built to last for specific, known, stable uses, toward homes being built as flexible, generic shells that accommodate whatever technology happens to exist at any given moment, with none of it truly integrated into the architecture itself. Number 11 is the dumbwaiter, a small manually operated elevator, usually just large enough for trays of food, laundry, or firewood, connecting different floors of a home through a narrow shaft with a pulley system. Common in larger American homes from the late 1800s through the early 1900s, dumbwaiters eliminated the need to carry heavy items up and down stairs multiple times a day. A meal prepared in a basement kitchen could be sent up to a dining room on the main floor without a single trip up the stairs. Laundry could travel between floors in either direction. Firewood could be moved from a basement storage area up to a second-floor fireplace without anyone hauling logs up a staircase. Building codes and changing kitchen layouts through the mid-20th century, where kitchens moved from basements to main floors, gradually eliminated the practical need for dumbwaiters in most new construction. But the underlying idea, a simple, manual, mechanically efficient way to move objects vertically through a house without physical strain, disappeared along with the specific technology, even though the underlying problem of moving heavy items between floors never actually went away. Number 12 is the exterior clothesline pulley system, specifically the version mounted between two houses, or between a house and a garage, operated entirely by pulleys so that laundry could be hung and retrieved without ever stepping off a back porch. You clipped wet laundry to the line at your starting point, then used the pulley mechanism to send the entire line out across the yard, drying clothes in direct sunlight and fresh air using zero electricity, and then pulled the line back when the clothes were dry, all without walking a single step into the yard itself. This system used nothing but sunlight, wind, and simple mechanical advantage to dry clothes for free, and it worked in every climate that got reasonable sun exposure. Electric clothes dryers became standard through the 1950s and 60s, not because they dried clothes better. Sunlight and fresh air actually leave fabrics smelling and feeling better than a dryer in most cases, but because dryers were marketed as modern, convenient, and weatherproof, while clotheslines became associated with poverty and old-fashioned living. Many American homeowners associations actually ban outdoor clotheslines today, which means in a significant percentage of the country, it is now illegal to use a completely free, zero-emission drying method that every previous generation of Americans relied on. Number 13 is the back porch icebox, the direct predecessor to the modern refrigerator, which continued to exist in many American homes well into the 1950s, even after electric refrigerators became available, because the icebox delivery system was already established, reliable, and in many rural areas simply faster to access than waiting for electrical infrastructure or affording a new electric appliance. An iceman delivered actual blocks of ice on a regular schedule, placed into an insulated wooden cabinet that kept food cold through simple brute force insulation and the physical cold of the ice block itself. What is genuinely remarkable about the icebox system is that it created an entire supporting economy and social structure around it. The iceman himself became a recognized, trusted figure in every American neighborhood. Children would sometimes climb onto the back of ice delivery trucks to grab ice chips on hot days, and the entire system operated with essentially no electrical grid dependency at all. When the electric refrigerator fully displaced the icebox by the 1960s, America gained convenience, but lost an entire category of local delivery economy and neighborhood social interaction that had existed for generations. And number 14, the last one on this list, is the front porch itself, not as an architectural feature, but as a social institution, because this is the item whose disappearance explains almost everything else on this list and connects it to something much larger than nostalgia for old appliances. American homes built before the 1960s were designed with the assumption that people would spend meaningful time outside, visible to and engaged with their neighbors, sitting on a covered porch in the evening, watching the street, talking to people walking by, genuinely participating in the physical and social life of their neighborhood. Beginning in the 1950s and accelerating through the 60s and 70s, American home design shifted dramatically toward the backyard, toward privacy fences, toward air-conditioned interiors that made sitting outside in summer heat unnecessary and unappealing, and toward garages positioned at the front of homes specifically to minimize the amount of time residents spent visible and interactive with their street. The front porch did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because American domestic life was deliberately redesigned, decade by decade, choice by choice, product by product, away from community visibility and toward private, climate-controlled, technologically mediated isolation. And every single item on this list, the milk chute, the party line telephone, the shared clothesline, the sleeping porch, the front porch itself, represents a piece of that same shift. We did not just lose objects. We lost a version of American domestic life built around shared infrastructure, community visibility, and solutions that worked without electricity, without subscriptions, and without anyone having to be sold anything at all. Your grandparents were not living with less. In many of these specific ways, measured very precisely, they were living with more, and we are only now, slowly, starting to notice what we let go of.